Reorganization and Improvement Authority meeting of January 16th, 2020 to order. Roll call.
Mr. Jobs?
Here.
Ms. McHale?
Here.
Ms. Taggart?
Here.
Mr. Philippos?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Andres?
Here.
And Ms. Carner?
Here.
All right, the first order of business is our reorganization. This is being our first meeting of the year. With that, I'll turn it over to the solicitor, Ed, to chair this portion of the meeting so we can accept nominations.
Yes, at this time, I will accept a nomination, or I'll open the nominations for chairperson.
I'll make I'd like to nominate Joe Kelly as our chairperson.
There being a nomination for Joe Kelly as chairperson, is there a second?
I'll second that.
There being a second, is there a motion to close the nominations?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
There being a motion and a second to close the nominations, any discussion? Hearing none, I will call the vote on the nomination of Joe Kelly as chairperson of the authority.
Do you want roll call?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's
Ms. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Taggart?
Yes.
Mr. Philippos?
Yes.
Mr. Jobs?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
In 5-0, I now turn the meeting back over to the chairperson, Joe Kelly.
Thanks, Ed. All right, I will open nominations for the position of vice chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Ann McHale.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other nominations? Do I have a motion to close the nominations?
So moved.
I'll second.
Ms. McHale?
Yes, but I think I should abstain because you don't vote for yourself. There's no financial interest here anyway,
You don't have to abstain, but you can.
but I can.
You can, but you don't have to.
I'll abstain just to be safe, to make it look.
Ms. Taggart?
Yes.
Mr. Philippos?
Yes.
Mr. Jobs?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes. All right, now moving on. Oh, that was a motion to close the nominations. Do we have to have a second vote then to appoint, or is that enough?
I think they were closed, and then that was the roll
Okay.
call vote.
All right, gotcha.
And you can take all the offices individually, or you can open up a slate if you like.
Okay. And while I'm talking to you, do we vote for assistant secretaries, or is that just a position of?
What we've historically done is anybody who is not the chairperson or the treasurer becomes
An
an assistant
assistant.
secretary for signing of documents.
So, yeah, so at this point, I can entertain a slate for secretary and treasurer at this time, for the positions of secretary and treasurer. I will open it up for nominations for both secretary and treasurer.
I'd like to make the nomination of Donna Taggart as secretary, John Philippos as treasurer.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any other nominations? All right, having no other nominations, I close the nominations and I call for a roll call vote on the positions of secretary and treasurer.
Ms. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Taggart?
Yes.
Mr. Philippos?
Yes.
Mr. Jobs?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes. All right, and do we officially?
I would just make a motion, yes,
Okay.
to approve those three.
Okay, then I will, at this time, accept a motion to approve the position of solicitors at Andrews, Executive Director of Alicia Carner, and Financial Assistant as Chris Jones.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any debate? All right, call roll call.
Ms. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Taggart?
Yes.
Mr. Philippos?
Yes.
Mr.
Okay.
Jobs?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
All right, I'm sorry, I do actually have to also do nominations for the position of Assistant Secretary, so I will accept a motion to appoint Mark Jobs, Ann McHale, and John Philippos as Assistant Secretaries. Just a motion.
I'll make
that
that on there.
motion.
I shouldn't.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second it. And with that, a roll call vote?
Ms. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Taggart?
Yes.
Mr. Philippos?
Yes.
Mr. Jobs?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes. All right, the reorg being done, we can move on to public comment for anything on the agenda today. I don't I don't see anybody from the public. I see Mr. Haynes here, but we'll hear from him in a second. All right, moving on to approval of the minutes, December 19th, 2019 meeting minutes. Any questions or concerns? If not, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion has it, 5-0. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Yeah, since our last meeting, which I believe was on December 19th, the treasurer's report has not changed. So it's the same.
Okay.
Same report, just different period end date of December 31, 2019.
Okay, I will accept a motion to approve the treasurer's report as described by Mr. Philippos.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion has it, 5-0. And on to old business and Christmas City LLC extension request. Start with Alicia and then Mr. Haynes.
In your packet is our two items that were previously submitted to the board. One is a memo from me, and the other one includes the request from Mr. Haynes representing Christmas City Hotel. Now, not everybody that's here today was on the board 2 years ago when the approval was issued for 2 years, a pledge of, sure, you can go to either one, Bruce. A pledge of 2 years by the authority to designate acreage at 1.1 acres. That just meant the authority was not going to allocate that extra CRIS acreage to another project based on the project as presented by Mr. Haynes. This is a request of an extension that the mayor supports at a 2-year extension. He'd like the authority to consider an automatic 2-year renewal based on some progress associated with the plan. The mayor feels strongly that it's a great project. He wants to see this project furthered on Main Street. He would appreciate the board supporting that request. However, he also wants to see some progress on the project. And so I leave that for the board members to discuss. But he is comfortable if progress is made with an automatic trigger of that 2 extra years of a renewal.
Okay, with that, Bruce, I don't know if you have comments or questions before we discuss it as a,
No, just I'll be happy to. I think I put in writing pretty much my story. But I certainly am here to answer any questions you guys may have
Sure.
in that regard.
I have
Yeah.
a question for you, Mr. Haynes.
Yeah.
In your memo, you had indicate that you are continuing to work with the city to complete a contingent land lease. What's the status of that? How long do you anticipate that to?
Tony Hanna is working on that. The property that we're looking at for the easement this is for the exit road from the garage. And so Tony, that ball's in his court. We've provided all of the detail information that he needed in terms of the property specifications of what it is we're doing. We had an engineering company put all the paperwork together. Tony is kind of working on the details because some of the property is city property and some of it is redevelopment authority. Most of it's redevelopment authority, but there's a little chunk that's actually city property. So I know he's been working with the mayor to try to move forward with that. So we would like to have that. Obviously, that's the next step to put that in place. So to get that easement in place.
and that's, I'm sorry, that's for your road, the road, right? That has nothing to do with
And
the
it-
structure.
It's not the structure, it's the road itself. So what we want to be sure that we have, without the easement, we don't have a project, right? So the key is to get the easement. So all the engineering work's been done for that. All of it's been submitted to the city. The city now is working on it. Tony kind of indicated he was hoping he could have it done by the end of the first quarter. I know we have
First
to come to
quarter.
city council. Yeah. Hopefully that certainly by June of this year, I would think, but I'm not speaking for Tony.
Alicia, are you involved at all with that process?
I am, and there's a second component to that, including the parking area that is
Correct.
to the south of the hotel on Main Street. So it's not just the easements out the back to ensure the access is out to Union Boulevard, but also the area that the parking lot currently sits is not owned by the hotel.
Well, not the
So-
parking lot, but the outdoor parking,
Yeah, like not the garage.
no, the left-hand side.
The southern portion of the hotel. And so it is, we're hoping to do all of that at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And that involves appraisals and, a number of steps.
But we've submitted all paperwork at this point.
Hmm.
We're just waiting for that to kind of take place and go through the process with the various boards and council and city council.
There's no way you could, light a match under their feet, get it moving.
Oh, I don't think it's
I-
that. I think there's still some negotiation on price, on the acquisition and some things too that Tony's got to wrap up with the Christmas City Hotel.
Yeah, we haven't even talked any of that yet. He still has to get the appraisal done.
Thank you. Good luck
So with regard
Good luck
to,
in getting the appraisal.
on everything. Hopefully it'll
Oh, thank you.
speed up.
so with regard to the potential renewal extension of 2 years, what are the milestones for that?
I mean, look, I was here. I mean, I know John was here. I was here when the project was approved. And I kicked it around with Alicia and some thoughts, at least on my end. And I was initially at land development, but I thought that might be a little too hard. Like that's a lot of upfront costs, I think, in 2 years. Certainly, if you had land development approval, it would be a no-brainer that you would kind of keep it going. But I thought, perhaps that was I think we both agreed that might be a little too much in terms of front end cost. And then the idea of having HARB approval might not be a bad idea. It's a mixed step in there. It would show progress. Whoever is going to do the project, whatever entity kind of comes in and is formed as a result of this project, is going to need HARB approval anyway. You seem to have a lot of your architectural designs done, if I remember correctly, as part of your original application process. I don't know that
Correct.
have you gone to the HARB at all? Have you had a conversation with them at least?
I had an informal HARB
Okay.
without official approval.
Yeah.
They gave me the head nod.
They
They liked
got
it.
So
But so that's where we are.
yeah. So to me, I think that would be at least a showing of the kind of the next step. Like I said, land development on that particular project is not without complication. I mean, just given the severe slope, the engineering that's going to go into that, I just think that you would want a lot more certainty from whoever that buyer would be, that the project was moving forward, I would think. But HARB approval to me was important. And I think equally important is some kind of annual update, just so that we have an understanding that the project is not much different than this, having a conversation that things are still progressing and you're still optimistic that it's, a viable project that from your perspective. And so, I mean, that's kind of where my head's at. I can't speak for everybody else, but I mean, that to me would be a strong condition that the project is making progress. And if that's done within 2 years, we would still have the update, but the extension he could look at an investor and say, it's going to happen. There's another 2 years to make this happen.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you grasped it well, Joe. Thanks. As I put in my thing, this is a timing issue. The whole thing has been a timing issue. I think it's a great project, but we're at the stage in the cycle of hoteliers. We're in late stage market development in the hotel world. So the investors that I've been talking to for the past year and a half, the market's kind of told me that they're scared of this particular, this is a major investment. And of course, when we first applied for this investment, there was, no other conference center hotel, not 3 new hotels that opened in 2018. And so the period of time that and Wind Creek wasn't on the scene at that time. So the introduction of Sands selling the property and creating the anxiety for investors that I talked to about what are they going to do? If they're going to build a conference center, there really isn't room in the market for two conference center hotels. And unless there's a demand change in the market of some substance to drive more demand to the market. And that coupled with generally across the country, late stage hotel development, which makes people even more skeptical of making a capital investment because they're afraid of overcapacity. And we're at a point now in our market where we're over capacity, essentially. Well, we'll be for sure when Wind Creek property comes on board. So from their perspective, when the 3 hotels opened out in Center Valley, for example, and in here, we lost that in 2018, we lost 3,000 room nights that year. And that's just standard. That's what happens when a hotel opens. It cannibalizes the other hotels. And the Hyatt lost the same amount. Well, us and the Hyatt got hit the hardest because we were the main hotels for the 2 corporate entities, Olympus and Lutron. We were essentially the Olympus's property and Lutron was Hyatt. We both lost in total somewhere probably around 6,000 people on the streets of downtown Bethlehem when that happened. So as I'm talking to the investors, they're looking at those kind of numbers and they're saying, you're asking me to come forward and make a $40 to $45 million investment at a time when your occupancy is going down. And the market occupancy is the capacity of 400 additional rooms and not knowing what's going on with Wind Creek. The Sands was pretty clear that they weren't going to build a conference center hotel. So if anything, they were only going to build more guest rooms. And remember, the basis of our doing this project really was the conference center. Putting a bigger ballroom in the hotel, having a bigger facility for weddings, having a bigger facility to capitalize on what we already do. So, and on top of that, one of the hotels that opened out in Center Valley put a 6,000 square foot ballroom in. So we not only lost guest rooms, we also lost meetings and banquets from downtown. So yeah, I am still optimistic that this is a project that can happen. It's just, we know we're going to lose when Wind Creek opens, we're going to lose more guest rooms and we know we're going to lose more meetings. So we know we're going to face that issue. The question is how hard will we get hit in 2021 when that opens? So it's going to be difficult. I'm going to be continuing to talk to potential investors all the way through. My gut feel is that if we find one, up to this point, I haven't talked to anybody that wasn't willing to do the project right away. Now I'm going to talk to people who may not be ready to do the project right away, but I'm going to open the door a little bit further to somebody that might like the project, want to do the project, but at the right time in the market. And so the reason I'm asking for the extension for 4 years is because we're not really going to be able to assess what the impact is from Wind Creek and their 35,000 square feet of meeting space until 2022, quite frankly. So it's going to be right 2021, 2022 when they open up. And, the overcapacity is very evident today. I mean, when you have, the Hyatt offering $98 rooms, we're still going through this overcapacity situation. So I think we have to work our way through that, but I'm still optimistic long-term that hopefully we can have some more demand generators come to downtown Bethlehem, whether it's the World Heritage, whether it's some new corporate, my vision of a Fortune 500 company coming to downtown. But so I think long-term, it's a great thing for Main Street. It's a great thing for the city. I just think the timing isn't right. At the time we were looking at it, we were going to be the only game in town. And the investment community essentially affirmed to me that, and these are historic hotel owners and people who are in the industry. These are people you'd be proud of. The people I'm talking to are people you would be proud of if they were to be part of this project. And so, and I'm going to continue to talk to those kinds of people, but they also are, you know, they have told me that you're not ready for this, but they like the property. They like the idea that maybe someday if World Heritage comes or something that we can do this, they like the project. So we're going to continue to do this. But I think it could be that by March of 2022, I'm certainly likely not going to be at land development, as you indicated. We could take officially, hopefully we'll have the easement in place. So they're comfortable that the infrastructure is basically in place to do this project. And we can certainly get the hard, because I don't see the exterior changing. You know, whoever comes in may tweak the inside. They may reduce the meeting space because of Wind Creek. Maybe it's going to be more rooms instead of more meeting space. Instead of 25,000 square feet of meeting space, it may only be 15. But I can't dictate what it's going to end up being until I find the right partner to make it happen. And having this just out there in place, no different than Martin Tower or other CRIZ holders, you know, have till 2024 or 2026. I'm just asking to put us in the same time frame as the other CRIZ property holders in the city.
And Bruce, to that end, I mean, as you talk about the evolution of the project when you're meeting with investors, you know, just keep the city, you know, Alicia, or keep us in the loop, because if we have to make the worst case, if we have to make some kind of modification to the grant, we wouldn't want you to be jammed up against the time limit. So to the extent that you can kind of keep us in the loop where we think we might have to make some kind of amendment to the state for the application process.
And this has not gone to the Commonwealth, as a friendly
this
reminder.
hasn't,
It has
okay.
not gone to the Commonwealth yet. Those 3 conditions in the memo were what this board, the administration, and Kristen City Hotel agreed to previously, which includes land development approval, the 50 parking spaces in the garage open 300 days a year for the public,
Right.
and the required matching funds, which is a critical component of the CRIZ, are all things that need to be satisfied prior to the application being submitted to the Commonwealth. So what we're talking about today is not modifying any of those.
Right.
And we've not received a request from Mr. Haynes to modify those. It would just be to extend the time period, and under what conditions would an automatic renewal be triggered after 2 years for additional 2 years.
And if I have this new business entity together at that time, obviously I'd be bringing them with me.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. If I don't, I still want to be able to work on it. And, you know, and quite frankly, I see it happening. That's the whole part happening not till 2022 to 2024.
Okay.
And that's why I've asked really for the 4 years. So.
Gotcha.
But I'm happy to go to Harb if that's what you guys want me to do, just to keep the thing rolling along and keep you informed where we are.
That's good. Any other questions?
Can you
Sure.
just clarify for me, this automatic 2-year renewal after that, is that contingent upon these milestones that we've just been talking about? Like, I just need to be clear on that.
Yeah, the way I see it, again, this is my sense, is that the 2-year, we get 2 years starting today, and then it would vet if he got Harb approval between now and that 2 years, his next 2 years would automatically vest. But even as part of that, we would still want annual updates on the progress of the project.
Okay.
And
That's my vision. Again, I mean, we're a board here. We can, you know, we have some flexibility, but that's just, in my mind, the milestone I was looking at. That seemed to be the most reasonable, I think, in terms of what you know, kind of where this project sits and the costs associated with the development side of this.
Okay.
It was seemingly, I've had a good balance.
Mr. Chairman, should we also have the easement in place as part of that?
I don't mind having the easement in place. I mean, it's hard to know, only because I don't know what the cost outlay is going to be. I would say that at least fundamentally there'd be an agreement as to what that's going to be, because if he's not going to buy the property from the city unless he's going to do the project, so that at least that there's some kind of agreement in place that would fall into place if the project happens.
Right.
You're right, because the easement concept is that it would be an easement contingent upon the project.
Right.
Otherwise, we don't,
Yes.
you don't want us to have an easement on land where it's not going to have a project and we don't have any need for it. So it would just be having an understanding in place.
Yes,
Right.
so I don't mind having that
I-
as a milestone as
I
well.
think
Just
that
having
makes
the,
sense.
the agreement for what the terms and conditions to satisfy the city are and the redevelopment authority on that. And we can certainly add that one, Mark. That makes some sense too.
Yeah.
And that, again, that would make whoever the investor is going to be is going to want to have that.
Yeah, I need to
Resolved
get
anyway.
that in place before that.
Yeah.
I agree.
You said you don't have a project without the easement, right?
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, we can certainly make that as part of the initial 2-year window.
And Joe, if that's not in place, we still have the opportunity to just extend it.
Yes, so
Yeah.
it would just come back here and have a similar conversation that we're having today.
One other question. You talked about the market dynamics. What was your occupancy rates in 2018 and 2019?
2017, it was 75%. And in 2018, it dropped to 71% when the new hotels opened. And in 19, we came back slightly to about 72 to 72.5. But we're still 2.5, 3% under where we were before the new capacity came on.
And is that not unusual? Is that unusual when new hotels open? Like
No, it's normal.
it's normal.
Yeah,
They
I
kind of
mean-
come back.
I mean, hotels don't generate any demand. So if a hotel opens, all it does, there's 60 hotels in the market.
Right.
Those 400 rooms add up to about 150,000 room nights. And if they're going to open and get 60% capacity, they're going to take 90,000 rooms from the 60 hotels. It's just some get hit harder than others. Like our 2 downtown hotels got hit harder than any other hotels in the market because there weren't any hotels out
Right.
there with those corporate headquarters were. And so we benefited in downtown by having that until the hotel opened next door to it. So we're just clawing our way back, and so is the Hyatt.
All right. Any other questions, concerns? All right. I would accept a motion to have our solicitor draft a resolution. And we do have a draft copy, but we have to make some changes to it based upon the conversation here. So if I can get this right,
And may I just, so what's before you is a rough resolution that did describe the project, describe the request for an extension. It's drafted there roughly to indicate a 2-year extension with a 2-year additional 2-year extension beyond that, subject to your discretion. Should you choose to have conditions added so that second 2 years is automatically vested or triggered upon the certain events, then I would have to modify this
Okay.
resolution. So if your motion would indicate the conditions precedent for the automatic vesting of that second year,
gotcha.
as well as this resolution doesn't talk about the annual reporting. So if you should also include that if you
Okay.
as a modification, if that's your
Gotcha.
intent.
Well, that's certainly where my head's at. Having looked at the resolution, I would certainly approve a resolution that created a milestone of HARB approval and having however we want to have the easement language, a contingency agreement regarding the easement necessary for the project to be accomplished within these next 2 years, and that would automatically vest the extension and the renewal for another 2 years after that. And I would like to personally add just the annual update. I think that's an important component for us to make sure, we know the project's kind of still moving along, and if we can help at the same time. So I mean, that's where I'm at. I will approve, I would support a resolution that does that. So,
Are you including an optional 2-year extension after the first 2 years?
yeah, the first 2 years is what they get now. And then
Right.
for that 2 years to vest, it would vest automatically.
Automatically,
If he had HARB approval and the contingency the agreement around the easement in
Okay.
place.
Okay.
If he didn't have those two, for whatever reason, he could still get a 2-year extension. He would have to come back here and it would be at the discretion of the authority.
Okay.
Would be how I view the,
That's
resolution.
what I thought.
Okay.
Also, but I wanted to clarify that.
so. If I would make that motion.
I'll second that motion. That we accept the 2-year extension
With
with
the
the optional.
aforementioned conditions precedent of HARB approval and
An easement agreement in
easement
place.
agreement in place with the city. And the addition of an annual review with the authority. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So the annual review, would that be coming back to this
Mhm.
committee, this meeting and addressing an update?
Just an update. Yeah. I mean, it could be, I mean, it doesn't have to be a year from now. We can find a time at some point in time. But that, again, just my kind of thoughts.
There is a date indicated on page.
Yeah, that's
The
that's the draft. That's the
Okay, so
extension
that can
date too, is it not? Yeah. So,
And that dates 2 years from the
Yeah.
current date.
Right.
So
so we'll just.
we're not at the deadline yet. You're
Yeah.
2 months away. So if a 2-year extension will actually give them 26 months within 24 months at additional.
Any other questions? With that, I'll call a roll call vote.
Ms. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Tiger?
Yes.
Mr. Philippos?
Yes.
Mr. Jobs?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, new business, any new business? Solicitor's report?
I have nothing further to report.
Those are my favorite reports. Executive Director report?
We did have a meeting on the Wilbur Mansion project as previously presented. I do expect them to come back before this authority in February. So just as an FYI, once I get that date pinned down, I will reach out to ensure your availability for the meeting dates in February before figuring out which one. I know they wanted to be on this meeting
Mhm.
agenda. There was not enough time for that to happen. So I'm sure they're going to want to be at the first meeting in February. Just some changes to the project, not dissimilar to, you haven't had an update. There will need to be a time extension that is not, we're not at that point yet because theirs isn't triggered until May, I believe. But because they've got some exciting changes, they want to take it to the board and accomplish that time extension. And approval, I guess, is the best term of the change in project.
Great. All right. And our next meeting date is February 6th, 2020. With that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right.
No problem.
Meeting adjourned.
So we'll send, I'll tweak the resolution.